Hi everyone. If you're enjoying the show and have appreciated the tips and experience being shared with you, maybe consider leaving a one-off tip to support production, including the hosting, the booking, the marketing, the recording, the editing, and every other aspect of making a show like this. You can do that by visiting podcastingpeople.uk/support or via the link in the show notes. Thanks for listening.
Hi, my name is Arielle Nissenblatt. I am the Community Marketing Manager at Descript, and today I'm going to give you a tip about podcast marketing. As the Community Marketing Manager at Descript, I work with the community to figure out what they love about the product, what could be improved about the product, and how we can take all of those insights and make the product better, and how we can highlight people who use Descript for their productions. We also put on live events, both in real life and virtually, for folks so that they can learn about the product and so that they can learn about the wider world of audio and podcasting. I started in the podcast world really just as a listener. I loved listening to podcasts, still love listening to podcasts. I listen to about 5 hours a day of audio all over the place. And when I first started listening to podcasts, my thought was, I need to find a way to work in this space. I will do whatever it takes to work in this space. So I started a podcast recommendation newsletter in 2017 because I was listening to so many podcasts and my friends were listening to so many podcasts, and I was thinking, what if I'm missing out on some really great podcasts that I would have just never heard of otherwise if my friends hadn't told me about them? So what if we each shared our 5 favorite podcast recommendations every week? So the newsletter that I started is called Earbuds Podcast Collective, and each week it sends a theme and 5 podcast episodes on that theme. And each week is curated by a different person. The idea is that you will always have something new to listen to. It's a great way to discover new shows and to discover new creators and to discover new curators. So I started that newsletter as a way of giving myself a job in the audio/podcast space, and it has led to lots of other jobs in the audio/podcast space. I've worked as a studio booker. I've been a producer. I have been an in-app curator. I work on the marketing side, and now I'm, of course, the community marketing manager at Descript. One of my favorite things about the wider world of podcasting is, if I had to boil it all down, the one word would be collaboration. I just think that people who work in the podcast space index as higher collaborators, more likely to desire to collaborate than people in other industries. And I think the reason for that is because people understand that in order for a show to grow, you need to be borrowing audience from other creators. And in order for that to be feasible, you need to have great relationships with other creators. So one of the first pieces of advice that I give to people when they say, how do I grow my podcast, is make a list of other shows that you want to be in collaboration with. Reach out to them, but don't just throw them an email that sounds generic. Send them an email, listen to their show, and then jump on the phone with them for 5 to 10 minutes to figure out where there are gaps in both of your content and where you could fill in each other's content. So I think it really is all about collaboration. People are very willing to hop on the phone, not just for the purposes of setting up podcast swaps, but also to hear about people's experiences getting into the podcast space. I have multiple conversations every week with people who are recently graduating from university, and they're asking me, how did I get into the podcast space? And I get to talk to people who've been doing it for a long time. And I just really find that collaboration is my favorite thing about podcasting. My one big tip for podcast marketing is to be very discerning when you are on the internet looking for tips about podcast marketing. You're going to see a lot of advice that says, start a TikTok, or start posting consistently on social media, or start a blog, or create a course to go along with your podcast. And those are all things that are great, but I would not consider them marketing for your podcast, because those are things that in and of themselves need to be marketed. Instead, I would point you back to my one thing that I love about podcasting, which is collaboration. I would make a huge list of podcasters that you want to be in collaboration with, and I would think about ways to borrow audience from each other. So instead of being caught up in the advice to create more content, think about ways that you can leverage your existing content. You can find me at ariellenissenblatt.com. That's ArielleNissenblatt.com. And you can see all of my links in the show notes. Thank you for listening to Podcasting People.
Like the sound of this episode? The Sound Boutique can help with your show too, from fixing problem audio all the way through to producing full shows. Visit thesoundboutique.com today to start a conversation. The link is in the show notes.